Okay, we'll wait just a minute for people to come in and join us and get started. So those of you that are coming into the room, welcome to our monthly Copperleaf Financial Roundtable. This month we're talking about giving circles, and we'll get started in just a moment. For those of you that are joining us, know that we'll be recording this session as we usually do and posting it on our YouTube channel within a few days, so you can watch it later or share with friends if you want to. And I'll go ahead and get started and first introduce myself. I'm Michael Thompson, partner and senior wealth advisor here at Copperleaf Financial. Today, my topic really gets me excited, and so do my guests, Leslie Halperin and Laura Latka. Leslie, I've known for many years. Leslie and I served on the board at the Intervale Center in Burlington for a number of years. Leslie also helped our sister firm, Davis and Hodgson, put together their socially responsible strategy a few years ago. Leslie is a graduate of George Washington University, spent some time at Ben & Jerry's, and has been a philanthropic advisor for many years. And Laura Latka, a graduate of Middlebury College, and has been a philanthropic advisor and still a philanthropic advisor to the Hale Family Foundation, and has worked at the Vermont Community Foundation and been in the philanthropic world for many years. So thank you guys. And a few years ago, you put your heads together and started something called the Giving Project, which I watched in fascination and great interest. And that's really what we're here to talk about today is giving circles, which I think is really, really exciting. So I'm going to start. Well, first of all, a couple of housekeeping things. Participants, please ask questions. We would encourage your questions by entering your question in the chat box down below. We'll take your questions along the way and happy to address them. We want this to be interactive and a way for you to learn about giving circles and how you might be able to participate either in an existing giving circle or start your own, whatever gets you excited. But let's start by taking a step back. And if one of you guys could just tell us what's the origin of giving circles, and tell us, how did this whole idea get started, do you think? Kind of walk us through a little history.
Sure. You want me to start, Laura?
Sure.
Well, first of all, a giving circles come in many shapes and sizes and forms, but a giving circle essentially is a group of people that get together that have shared values and want to learn together, pool their funds, to support issues and causes that they care about. And giving circles have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. Nobody knows the exact origin, but the idea of a group of people getting together to raise funds collectively to support others first became most popular or common among immigrant communities, and also in communities after the time of the end of slavery, when people were wanting to form new communities and support family members and others. So they've been around forever. And again, all shapes and sizes, but things that they have in common are shared values, getting together to learn, to pool funds and support causes that people care about.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, a way for people to kind of pool their money for various causes makes a lot of sense. I get the feeling, though, that giving circles have become much more popular recently. And maybe tell us, how did you guys get involved with giving circles, and give us maybe a little background on the Giving Project and kind of what that's all about.
You tell our story, Laura. It's so good.
So Leslie and I have both worked in philanthropy in different aspects of philanthropic advising for, more than 20 years, probably more than 40 years combined. And so we're always colleagues. We always would talk about grant proposals that we were seeing, or strategy, or ways that we could help business clients, individuals, families, family foundations really help define what their goals were with their philanthropy, the best processes, the strategy, and simultaneously, Leslie started a giving circle. So, with her professional hat on, we would talk all the time about what we were seeing in the world of philanthropy and really how to effectively make grants that create the impact that whoever is making that grant wants to see. And so then personally, Leslie started a giving circle with a group of women because, she was doing this in her professional world, but also she and I both would always get asked from people, around Christmas time or year end or in April, I want to give some money away, and whether it's $100 or $100,000, how do I know how to really give in a way that I know there's impact and know it's a great nonprofit? How do I figure out what I want to give to? And so as Leslie came into this giving circle, kind of, in her own time, but really found that the things that she was doing professionally really came into play with this giving circle. And that what was so wonderful about it is that all these people who don't work in philanthropy or don't work in the foundation or grant making world were coming together and having these discussions. And so she and I started talking about, gosh, there's a very small percentage of people that start a foundation and can hire a director, or that can set up a donor advised fund or have a personal philanthropic advisor. But what anyone could do is start a giving circle. And so we thought, we have this professional background of how to advise and how to create strategy and impact. And what if we created an organization where we could help anyone who wanted to create a giving circle, so that whether they were giving $5 to their giving circle or 5,000, we could help them create a organization or a strategy or a giving circle that really made sense and that felt good to them. So our goal from the beginning was to help people be effective, find joy in their giving, and collective giving has such tremendous impact by simply having a lot of people come together to make a decision and to give more money than they probably could on their own. So we launched the Giving Project, gosh, Leslie, 3 years ago, I think, and have had so much fun every day since.
I really, really love the community aspect of giving circles. That just, I think, is so powerful. It really gets me excited. So tell us about the mechanics. How does a giving circle work? So what's sort of a typical giving circle look like in terms of how many people and how many times do you get together? And does it have to be, you do it face to face over a potluck or via Zoom and virtual cocktails, or, how does it work? Tell us what a typical giving circle would look like.
Yes to all of that.
Yes.
I'll let Leslie answer, but the answer is
yeah. Yes, and yes. I was going to say the same thing, Laura. I mean, giving circles come in all shapes and sizes. I know of a giving circle that has 3 people, and I know of a giving circle that has 300 people.
Wow.
Some meet live and in person around kitchen tables. Other ones meet on Zoom and virtually. Some meet monthly, some meet once a year, and everything in between. And so the structure of the giving circle can really be anything that works for your group of people. Let me tell you a little bit about my giving circle as one model that may be helpful. So I'm in a giving circle. We have anywhere between 12 and 18 members. We are all women that live in Chittenden County, roughly. And kind of the guiding principle or the value that we all share is that we want to pool our funds together to support programs in Vermont that are addressing issues of equity. We get together about 3 or 4 times a year for kind of social/business meetings. We start the year off where we get together in someone's house, check in with each other, see how people are doing, and learn about what's on people's minds. What are the issues that are touching their lives? What are the things that they care about? And then in between that meeting and the next meeting, we start a list and people start to put forward issues or organizations that they would like to consider supporting. At the next meeting, we get together, we talk about those. We winnow that list down to 2 or 3 organizations or causes, and then we start our due diligence process. And usually a group member or 2 take the lead on conducting the due diligence and then report back to the group at the next meeting. At the last meeting of the year, we invite a representative from each of the organizations that we're considering supporting to come and present to our group.
Wow.
And then after that, we debrief and we vote. And we always have consensus. We always have. It's been strange. It's never been a stated rule, but we always have consensus. We pool our funds. We make a collective donation. Our giving level for our group is $1,000, and so we typically give anywhere between $12,000 and $20,000 a year, depending on the size of our members. And then we start again for the next year.
That's so exciting. I love the due diligence. That's fantastic. And I was going to ask if the nonprofits or the organizations that you support are always aware of the gift and kind of where it's coming from. And it sounds like in your case, that's kind of part of the process is getting that involved.
Yeah.
One thing I wonder about is, again, I love the community aspect of this and the idea that everybody kind of pools their thoughts and their passions and their resources in order to focus on kind of a single issue or cause. In our world and with our clients, we think about different vehicles like donor advised funds and charitable trusts and things like that. But in this case, one of the things that stands out to me is the Giving Circle isn't constrained by any tax considerations. You could provide a scholarship to an individual if you wanted to, right?
You could. Do you want to respond,
Absolutely.
Laura?
Yeah. And that's one of the incredible beauties of a Giving Circle is that you don't have the parameters of a traditional foundation or giving vehicle that's really quite strict. One thing we work with people on and Giving Circles on is to make sure there is some due diligence process, just so that whether you invite nonprofits to come present like Leslie's group does, or there's some Giving Circles that do it all very quietly and then just write a check and it's from, the Athena Giving Circle in Southern Vermont, and they don't know who is a part of that. They didn't even know they were being considered, and they get a check for a certain amount of money. But due diligence is so important. But yeah, that's something that's so wonderful about it is, we've seen Giving Circles who are community based, and there's a fire and a family loses everything, and the Giving Circle comes together to pool money to support the family. Or, there's a lot of Giving Circles that are issues based. So as things are happening in the world or in their community, they're very responsive, and they can pool their money and give to what feels really important right now, and without IRS designation and 501c3 letters and everything that Leslie and I, that's again kind of our day job. That's what we're looking at.
Right.
So it is so incredibly flexible, which is wonderful.
As an example, we just heard from a woman who's a Giving Circle leader. She lives in, I think, the Shelburne area. And with members of her Giving Circle in response to the gun violence crises that our country is experiencing, she's organizing an event and kind of like a pop-up Giving Circle experience to raise money on that issue. That
sounds amazing. And again, one of the things that gets me so excited about the kind of the idea of Giving Circles too. I think it's, any opportunity to create community and to focus giving is kind of an amazing thing. Have you found, and I want to come back to a question, Leslie, we were talking earlier, you threw out some numbers about the growth of Giving Circles. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but I wonder about if you find that Giving Circles kind of have grown out of other natural kind of organizing entities. I think of like book clubs, or years ago we used to have investing clubs where people would get together to kind of pool money to buy stock. Have you found any synergies or have Giving Circles kind of evolved out of other natural groups? Have you seen that?
One of the best stories that I've heard is this woman, Julie, who participated in one of our training sessions for aspiring giving circle leaders. She told us she had a group of people that she got together with and they walked regularly, and that a lot of times they got together and they just talked about all the problems in the world. And she decided to switch the conversation. Instead of talking about all the problems in the world, she decided that they were going to be a group that was going to do something about all the problems in the world. So this group of people that got together to walk regularly formed a giving circle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, book clubs have transformed into giving circles, groups of friends. There's actually people I know that have started giving circles with family members.
Oh,
So instead of around the holidays, they've changed their tradition from giving gifts to each other. And instead it's a time for the family members to come together. Laura, what about you and your friends? You guys, you have a giving.
Yeah. I have something similar with a group of friends from college where we live all over the world, and instead of sending everyone presents or pulling money to send someone flowers on their birthday, when each person's birthday rolls around, they tell our group, this is an issue that is something that's really important to me, or I'm worried about gun violence, or I'm thinking a lot about clean water. And we do some research and find an organization, and then we all make a gift in that person's name. Or one of us makes the gift, but it's in the birthday girl's name, to, a cause or an environment that she really cares about. So yeah, we see giving circles come about from current groups or, affinities. We work with a giving circle that came out of people who care a lot about the slow food movement.
Yeah.
And so they would get together and have meals, and inevitably those conversations would turn to, farm to table, or the state of soil health, or, all different things. And so it was a very natural progression to say, well, gosh, we're having these meetings, we're having these meals, we're having these conversations, let's pool money together, and then we can give to something that we collectively as a group really care about. And one thing that's really nice too is, in Vermont, there's a lot of very quiet donors. There's a lot of people who have tremendous assets and they want to give in their backyard, but they don't want to give with their name associated, because they don't want to be seen as anything different, or, they don't want suddenly everyone coming to them. And so one thing that's really nice about giving circles also is there's ways to do it so that, you can say, okay, we're asking everyone to please give $1,000, and we collect the checks, or, that way. There's also ways to do it so that someone can join. I've started a giving circle where it's a $5 minimum, and you can get anything up from that. And people can give and not know, well, this person gave $1,000 and this person gave $5. Here's the gift from the giving circle, and everyone had an equal vote, an equal say. And, it's not about giving credit, but it's also nice, I think, for people who have more to give, that it's not their specific name attached to a certain size gift, which is really nice.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because one of the things that occurs to me is money can be such a private thing, and even broaching the subject of, I want to give, even sometimes letting your friends and family know that you can give, can be embarrassing for some people. How do you coach people around sort of that first step of making it comfortable to ask or invite friends or relations or people in a community to kind of participate in this kind of thing? I would think that could be really awkward. So how do you? I imagine you may kind of do quite a bit of coaching around that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we advise people who want to launch giving circles is to have some things decided in advance, so that when you're asking people to join, they know what they're signing up for.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things is the requirements around giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like Laura explained, some giving circles have a $5 minimum, and some have a $5,000 minimum, and everywhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really important to be clear when you're asking people to join your giving circle, what the expectations are around financial commitment and also time. Giving circles give more than just money. Sometimes giving circles members give of their time too. Sometimes they volunteer together as a group. Other times, they just kind of promote and create opportunities and encourage members to get involved with the organizations they support.
So if somebody wanted to start a giving circle, would you sounds like you would encourage them certainly to give it some forethought and create some parameters. And then would you just, how careful do you have to be about inviting people in? I mean, again, that seems like that could be kind of a bee's nest, but maybe not. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, again, to Leslie's point, it's making some decisions ahead of time. So there's some giving circles that are closed. So for example, Michael, if you and I wanted to start a giving circle that was focused on protecting Lake Champlain, clean water, we might decide, this could get political or this could get complicated. So instead, we're both going to invite 3 people who we know really care and our views are aligned, and we're going to start there. There's also some giving circles that say we're really focused on, early childhood literacy, and this is an open giving circle. Anyone can join. All views are welcome. Here again, here's the giving parameters. We ask that everyone is able to make a gift of X amount or, a minimum, but rarely is it contentious or, I think sometimes like Leslie and I both work in family philanthropy, sitting around a board meeting with family members, everyone has different opinions or different ideas about what they want to do. And so to your point, money is very personal. It's very intimate. A lot of times it's like incredibly vulnerable. Sorry.
And I'll just add to that, one of the things that we do at the Giving Project is help people. No one needs to start from scratch. No one needs to reinvent the wheel. And so we've put together a guide for people who want to launch giving circles. And we also have templates and examples of kind of guiding principles of giving circles that people can take and use to create their own materials. The larger your group is, the more open your group is, obviously, probably the more formal you need to be, and the clearer you need to be on about expectations for participation. If you're starting with a couple of close friends and you already have a high level of trust and comfort, you could probably just get going with, a good idea and bring people together and build it together as you go. You don't need to have everything figured out, but having a few basic non-negotiables determined before you start recruiting is probably a good idea.
Yeah, like anything, a little planning probably helps in the beginning. I want to say that we have I'll get to you in a second, Laura. I see you're ready to jump in. Thank you. On our website, we have a page on giving, on charitable giving in general, and I think we've included a link to the Giving Project. But so people can find you. Is it just thegivingproject.com, or how would they find your website?
I'll put it in the chat, but it's thegivingprojectbt.org.
Okay, perfect.
Is our website, but I'll put it in the chat.
We have a question that I want to address and encourage people to ask questions. And I'm curious if the audience wants to answer. If anybody in the audience are members of giving circles now, we'd love to know if you're currently involved in a giving circle. But here's a question that we've got from the group, which is, do giving circles have their own bank accounts, and how is the money pooled? So I love that, a good mechanical question. So what's the answer?
It depends. So, again, it depends. There's lots of flexibility. Some giving circles do not pool funds. Instead, members are kind of on the honor system and are encouraged to make their contributions individually directly to the receiving organization. Other giving circles on the other extreme do have a bank account, and members may actually submit like monthly donations, and then they watch their fund build over time. There's also a resource that we want to make sure people know about, which is really incredible and really has helped facilitated collective giving. And it's called Grapevine. And Grapevine is an online giving platform. It's kind of like Facebook for giving circles. Facebook meets GoFundMe or something like that for giving circles, because it's a place where people can convene their giving circles virtually, share information. They could even vote. And Grapevine also has a function where they can help facilitate the financial transaction as well. And Laura just put the link in the chat. So there's lots of different ways of structuring and facilitating the giving process. And that's something that Laura and I, coach people on to help them figure out what's the best for their group.
Nice. So going back to growth, and I can understand why giving circles is an idea that's caught on. It just makes sense in so many different ways. But Leslie, you mentioned, I think, some numbers. It was it 1995?
Mm-hmm.
There were how many giving circles, and where are we today with kind of the growth of giving circles?
50 giving circles, and active giving circles that people knew about. And then today there's about 2,000.
Wow.
And the goal, there's an active movement to grow the number of giving circles globally, led by an organization called Philanthropy Together. And they are on a mission to help build a movement for collective giving, to help bring more people into philanthropy through giving circles. And the goal is that they've set is by 2025 for there to be about 3,000 giving circles.
That seems certainly achievable. I'm surprised there aren't over 10,000 today. It just makes so much sense, and it seems like it's so easy to get started. It seems like there should
may
be
be
a lot
more.
Right.
Yeah, there may be more than that. But I also want to mention one other resource for people. And there is a global directory of giving circles.
Oh, wow.
Which is a great resource if you're interested in joining a giving circle rather than starting one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also can be really fun to look around to get ideas about the types of giving circles that exist, because they, like Laura and I have said many times, they come in all shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the vision of this organization, and it's great that there's a directory available. But where are you guys? I'll ask you guys to kind of dust off your crystal balls a little bit, or maybe you're put on your vision hats. Where do you see vision circles going, and where would you like to see them going? Where do you see opportunities for giving circles to maybe have a greater impact in the future?
I think there's philanthropy has really grown so much in the last, I'd say 30 years, where people used to maybe write a check at year end and kind of hope for the best. It was really considered charity a little while ago, where it was with a wish and a hope. You'd put a check in the mail and just hope that it helped someone. And then these great vehicles like community foundations and donor advised funds at financial institutions, and organizations like the United Way popped up, where people could have more informed giving, and maybe pay a fee to be part of an institution, but that would help kind of educate them in their giving. And with so much information out there now between websites and social media and Twitter, and there's so many ways to access information about nonprofits, that I think people are much more informed in their giving, and it's really more personal, social investment than charity, or even than gifts. How we kind of used to think of philanthropic dollars. So to me, giving circles are such a natural progression that makes so much sense. And for a lot of people, a donor advised fund at a community foundation might make sense, but there's fees associated with that. So if you only have a certain amount of money to give away annually, and you're spending some of that on the administrative costs of a foundation or of a donor advised fund, or whatever, giving circles are really incredible, because you have the power of this group that comes together to talk and learn from each other. You have the potential to make a much bigger gift, and It's relatively easy and has zero to very little administrative costs. So, like Leslie said, some giving circles get really serious in their structure and they create a bank account. So there's, whatever that bank fee is annually. But I see honestly giving circles as a huge step in the future of philanthropy. And I think it's also really powerful that everyone can do it and that you can be a part of it. And there's such access and equity in it that, with my professional hat on, kind of the law of the land is, unless you've got 5 million or more tucked away, don't even think about starting a private foundation, because the costs associated and the paperwork, and it just doesn't make sense. And people can do so much in a much easier way. And giving circles are incredibly powerful.
So democratic and progressive. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
Leslie,
And I
you got
love
anything?
Yeah. I think that, there's power in money, right? And when people get together and pool their funds collectively and can make a bigger contribution, it's a way for them to lift up issues that matter to them.
Yeah.
And so it's really a powerful way of democratizing philanthropy and creating an entry point for people who maybe haven't thought of themselves as philanthropists before.
Yeah. I'm curious about sort of outreach or the way to sort of continue what you guys are doing in your incredible effort through the Giving Project to educate and inform and kind of spread the word. But I also want to mention one of the things I really love about Giving Circles is it executes something that I always try to educate our clients around, which is a basic principle of philanthropy for me, which is sort of the opposite of investing, where in investing, we want to diversify, right? Mm-hmm. And in giving, I think the opposite is true. We want to focus. We want to focus our effort and focus for impact, right? And Giving Circles have the benefit of being able to provide that focus. I mean, how great is it that, Leslie's group can get together with however many people and provide an annual gift of $12,000 to $20,000 to a single entity? That's fantastic focus. And man, can that deliver some impact, right? And wow, you get to also maybe influence that impact and kind of what happens with those funds in a more direct and focused way, which, gosh, it doesn't get any better than that, I don't think.
One year, our gift represented one of the organizations that we supported their annual operating budget.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And we were, we recognize, that while it's a gift, can also create some challenges for an organization. And so we had lots of conversations with them about the potential impact that this large gift would have for them. And anyway, it was appreciated.
I bet.
And again, what's amazing about that is for the people in Leslie's giving group, $1,000 for some is a real stretch. Like that is by far the largest gift that they will give, or maybe the only gift they'll give. For some people, that's one of the gifts that they give, but everyone is, on the same level and a part of this. And it's incredible. And Michael, to your earlier point about focus, that is when I put the directory in the chat, and it's really interesting to see the giving circles that are out there. And, if I cared a lot about the, about birding or, something really specific, there might be a giving circle out there of people that also care deeply about that. And if there aren't, I could start one and I might, so I think it's so exciting, and it's really fun, which I think sometimes for people, regardless of how much you're giving away, I think philanthropy can feel very daunting. It can feel like, maybe you don't know where the gift should go, or it can feel hard. And I think one of the things that really comes out of giving circles, and we've seen this with giving circles we've worked with high schoolers up to people, past retirement, is that it is really fun. Like it adds joy into giving that I think otherwise, if you're sitting there, with a stack of annual appeal letters that you've gotten and you just don't really know where to give, or you don't really have anyone to talk to about it. And it's really fun.
Yeah. Well, and it brings to mind kind of the due diligence process that you guys talked about too, which is I imagine that kind of year long or however long you take to kind of do your due diligence offers lots of opportunities to learn about what organizations or what people are doing around that topic or that cause issue.
Yeah.
Can you share any stories about kind of what you've discovered or what you've heard about other giving circles discover in their due diligence process?
Well, I can think of, one group that we're connected with is a group in the Brattleboro area. They're called the Athena Giving Circle. And they're a group of women that get together, and they don't have a single issue area that binds them together. Rather, their focus is geography. And so they all live in the same community and are really interested in investing very, very locally in that community. And they have a great due diligence process where individual members go out and learn what they can, and then they report back. So there's a lot of learning and sharing, and they get to learn about very local organizations in their community. And I think that because of the way they've set up their process, there's the giving part, but the learning part is also really important. So even the organizations that they don't support through their due diligence, they're building community by sharing and learning about the organizations doing work and where they live.
Yeah.
There's also, we had a giving circle in Middlebury that we helped start that emailed us and said, we're doing great. We're having fun. It's happening. It's working. This is great. But we find ourselves very unsure of how to determine fiscal stability or really how to do the due diligence to really feel good about, if it comes down to these two, we're teachers and artists, and this isn't our background. Can you give us some tips? And we said, well, sure, let's do a Zoom. And so we put it out to all our Giving Circle members and said, we're going to do an hour on due diligence and how to read an organizational budget and how to look at revenue streams and how to read a nonprofit's 990. If you are looking at doing a gift to a nonprofit, and a 990 is a form that any nonprofit has to submit to the IRS to show their financials. And I think it was really helpful. Again, that's something Leslie and I do in our day jobs. But people who are starting giving circles often don't have that background. And so we walked through, here's how you look at an operations budget. And here's where you might ask some questions about, X, Y, or Z. Because I think that does help you feel informed and really confident in a gift, whether individual or as a giving circle. You want to feel really good that you understand and you trust this organization, again, regardless of the amount that is being given.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and something that we emphasize and help our clients with also. We got a note that folks might not be able to see the links in the chat. I want to assure everybody, we'll be sure to send out the links to everybody that's participating afterwards. So we've got your contact information. We'll make sure to send out those links so you have them after the fact. What other resources do you have on your website for? I think you talked about sort of a toolkit idea or a checklist. Give us kind of a rundown of the types of resources that you guys make available or could make available through the consulting you provide through the Giving Project. Share a little bit more about that.
Yeah. First, I just want to be clear that the services that we provide for the most part through the Giving Project are free. So we don't charge a fee for those. We do have a fee for service. If there's a group that wants Laura and I to actually facilitate for them and manage their giving circle process, then there's a fee for service for that. But all of the advice and coaching that give to folks that are interested in launching giving circles is for free. And when we started the Giving Project, we thought it would be important to have something in writing, a reference that people go back to. So we wrote a guide for Giving Circle leaders, and it's pretty comprehensive and answers, I think, most questions people will have about starting a Giving Circle. In addition to that, we have some templates that we can share, examples of like meeting agendas and mission, vision, value statements and things like that, that folks might find useful.
Questions to ask nonprofits that you're considering a gift to, you know, things like that. And to Leslie's point, making these tools and our help free was something that felt really important to us, because we both feel really strongly that philanthropy doesn't have to have a lot of zeros behind it. And it's to support your community and to support the needs that are out there. Everyone should be able to ask someone, you know, how do I read a 990? Or, you know, like it felt really important to us. And we wanted to create access for anyone that wanted to. So yeah, Leslie and I do this work and can charge contractually for this work, but this is where our passion for impactful and joyful giving really came together. And so it was really important to us that we weren't starting a business, that we were really providing support and help for anyone that wanted to create a giving circle or you know, think about it.
It's a great resource, and I have been really impressed with your website. It's quite user friendly and attractive, and there are great resources there. It makes me wonder, are there any conferences or sort of get-togethers where people could go, or where Giving Circle people get together and kind of share you know, best practices and the typical thing that you think about conferences? Is any of that stuff happening?
Yeah, well, we just missed the We Give Summit, which was the second annual global gathering for Giving Circles. But the good news about that is that most of the sessions that happened at that conference, which was virtual, were recorded and are accessible. And so if you go to the Philanthropy Together website, Laura, you want to put a link in there to the We Give Summit, most of those sessions are still available for viewing. And so that's a great resource. And we have some plans to maybe convene Vermont-based giving circles, maybe sometime in the fall. And bring people, and bring people together who are either actively engaged with giving circles or people who, you know, are thinking about launching or would like to join a giving circle. But because of the pandemic, we launched about 3 weeks before the whole world shut down. And so we've been doing this work really virtually, but we would love to perhaps create an opportunity to bring people together in real life.
Did you find that the pandemic was a stimulant to the growth of giving projects, do you think? Or how did it impact?
I think that, you know, many giving circles were able to pivot and do their work virtually. You know, there's nothing like getting together in real life. But I think that it was a fairly easy pivot for many giving circles. And then the other thing that grew out of it was giving circles with people that don't live near each other.
Right.
So like I said, I have a giving circle with my family members who live all over the country. There are giving circles that have members that live all over the world that get together now virtually. So I think there's kind of a new growth area for giving circles that are intentionally built on a virtual, you know, platform rather than in real life.
Yeah. I could see giving circles also be a part of, and maybe this is sort of a given, and you guys are seeing this all over the place, but I see families with donor advised funds that you know, the first generation wants to get the second and the third generation involved in sort of the legacy of that foundation or that donor advised fund. And it seems to me that, you know, a giving circle idea could really stimulate that and inform that process in a different way that might be really beneficial. Have you seen that kind of activity?
Gosh, absolutely. And again, the what's so great about a giving circle is the structure that everyone has one vote, everyone has equal say. So, especially in family philanthropy where there can be a lot of legacy, hierarchy kind of like, well, we're the grandparents and we founded this, or, we have more say or whatever. I think it's a really nice way to allow a lot of people to participate. And, what was really important to my grandparents, maybe very different now, or, grandkids or, other family members might have things that are important to them that weren't a part of that initial founding or, legacy statement. So yeah, I think it's a really nice way where you're not going in and changing the entire language of a foundation's mission statement. A giving circle, within a donor advised fund or within a family, it's very malleable. So again, like we're seeing, gosh, in the last 2 years, so many things that have happened and so many needs that have arisen, and people have a lot of different views on that politically or issue based. And it's a really nice way to be able to respond and to have conversations about what feels really important to us right now. And again, that can be a book club that has come together to give together. It can be a family that participates in a donor advised fund. It can be literally anything, which is
I know of one
really
giving
cool.
circle that's a multi-generational family, and there's 9 grandchildren. And they started each year, one of the grandchildren, they get to pitch, they get to choose basically and present the idea for giving. And it will go down through the ages of all the grandchildren, and then they'll start over again. And so it gives them, experience of doing some research and advocating for a cause they care about, and educating their family members too.
That's fantastic.
And it's interesting, giving circles. We have talked to a giving circle that's right in Burlington and very quiet. Their members are not, public about the fact that they're a part of this, but it has become like a really professional experience for them. And people who are suggesting an issue or a nonprofit present, they do a lot of research, and they stand up and present in front of the group, which is, I think, 40 to 50 people participate. Wow. Right, Leslie? And so it's, whatever their background was or their age or their interests, it's, I think, grown into something that is incredibly, it feels professional for them, that they take it so seriously, that it's a very moderated in a good way, kind of discussion and process. Whereas it grew out of some parents whose kids were in kindergarten together. And so they kind of came up through the ranks of elementary school and middle school and high school and kept coming back to these issues they were seeing in their school or in their community. And it's grown into this really interesting organization.
Interesting. That makes me wonder about kind of the leadership or the organization of a giving circle. And part of what you've described is the flexibility and the ability for a group to really be whatever the group wants it to be, and very highly democratic and progressive. But it sounds like it could also require quite a bit of organization and quite a bit of leadership, somebody kind of keeping the ball moving and keeping the thing organized. How do you coach people around that? And what advice do you have for people that maybe are thinking about starting one or joining a giving circle? How do you think about that piece?
Great question. Leslie,
it definitely takes work.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely takes work. And so I think anyone that's thinking about starting a giving circle needs to decide and understand how much time they have to put towards it to manage the work. And then that will also help shape this size and the scope of the giving circle. And the larger your giving circle is, the more formal your process needs to be. and the more work it will require. Some giving circles take minutes and keep minutes and have subcommittees. Other giving circles are just a group of people that get together every once in a while and chat and write checks. So the level of formality will inform, what's required from a leader. So that's important to understand. In my giving circle, I have a co-founder. My friend Annie and I co-founded our giving circle together and shared responsibilities. We're probably in our 5th year now, and we're just starting to transition. And members of the giving circle are stepping up and taking on new leadership roles. And, for me as a co-founder, that's success for me because it will live on, without me. And folks are feeling comfortable and feeling ready to step up and take on various leaders. We have a social coordinator in our giving circle now. That's a leadership role that came about because people wanted to create opportunities to be more social with each other. So one of our members, Tasha, stepped up to be our social coordinator.
Nice.
But I think that's another thing that's good to think about before you start a giving circle is, some rotate. Every time they meet, a different member is in charge of planning the place or, sending the Zoom link, planning the time, organizing the paperwork or inviting nonprofits. So some giving circles, it's really important to them that it isn't one person that's running, the meetings or the process, that they really take turns. And for some, it really makes sense that someone or people are kind of, like the board chair basically, or, and then they know that they'll transition that at some point. So I think it is a really important thing to talk about from the start so that everyone's clear what the roles and responsibilities are going into it.
It strikes me that most of the giving circles that Laura and I have referenced today are very kind of grassroots, and many of the giving circles in Vermont are these very local community-based grassroots, but there are giving circles that exist within institutions. And so throughout the country and globally, there are giving circles within, for example, community foundations, or giving circle that exist within corporations, for example, that support and sponsor and kind of underwrite and support the work of giving circles. So there's ways for giving circles to be affiliated with larger kind of supporting institutions. And at the same time, it's possible for them to be very grassroots and unaffiliated as well.
Interesting. So even within a company, that's a great idea. I think of, many companies have matching, kind of company matching. It's a great way to kind of leverage the company matching and have a group of employees get together and form a giving circle to sort of leverage that. What a great idea. I love it. So I'll remind our audience and those of you that are participating, thank you again for participating. We've got a few more minutes. So if you have questions, please go ahead and enter them in the Q&A or in the chat. What a great resource in Laura and Leslie here today to help us learn more about giving circles and how you might be able to participate if that gets you excited and is something that you see yourselves doing in the future. So as we start to think about wrapping up today, are there lessons or is there a message or two that we haven't talked about today around giving circles that you guys want people to know about?
Well, first, we're here for you. You don't need to figure this out on your own. It's been done before. And if you have questions, you can reach out to Laura and I. Our contact information is on the website, and I'm sure Michael will share it with you as well. The second thing is, while it's good to have a few things figured out about what's important to you about your giving circle, it's not necessary to have everything figured out to launch. And, sometimes it's better just to jump in and be open and see how things evolve. Rather than needing to feel like you have it all figured out before you get going.
Yeah. I would also think that, me and my friend could be a giving circle. We could start just like that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be complicated.
And we advise you to start small. We really do.
Yeah.
A core group of really committed, interesting people that can work well together can help shape the foundation for a giving circle that could then have potential to really grow exponentially and have an even bigger impact. Although some giving circles, my giving circle, if we can't fit in somebody's living room, that's too big for us. So really depends what you're going for.
Good. Laura, any final thoughts or words of wisdom for folks? I do have a couple of other questions, so we don't have to wrap up, but I'm just want to get your thoughts out.
No, I think Leslie covered some important points. And, I think when I talk with people about giving circles, my answer is just yes. Like it can literally be whatever you want it to be. It can be big, it can be small, it can be issue-based, location-based, it really can be anything. We had this great giving circle that we helped start with a senior in high school who just felt like she wanted more of a voice. She and her friends wanted more of a voice in what was happening in the state of Vermont, and wanted to kind of be taken seriously, and didn't want to just volunteer. And so there was 12 of them, and they had these great conversations about women's reproductive rights and about racial injustice and these things that they're growing up in, and they can't vote yet. And, so it was really interesting. And they made a gift that they all cared deeply about. And then someone else that had started a giving circle with us found out about it. And she and her group were so impressed by this group of 17-year-olds that they matched the gift.
Nice.
So
I love that.
Which is really incredible. And it also, statistically in our country, younger generations don't give the way older generations do. And part of that is there's usually more money in someone's pockets if they've worked longer, but it also, it just doesn't happen at the level that it used to. And so I think it's a really powerful way to also engage younger ages in thinking about the world they want to live in and what they can do to support it.
Yeah. Do you guys have a sense, and I bet you do, of how many giving circles there are in Vermont right now?
So on our website, we have a directory of Vermont-based giving circles. We can't claim that it's all inclusive, but they're the ones we know about. And I would say right now there's probably about 20 or 25, maybe 2022, something like that are listed in our directory. But we know there's more out there.
Yeah. And do you think Vermont is leading the way, or are there other parts of the country that have sort of caught on to giving circles before Vermont, or where do we stack up compared to other parts of the country?
That's a good question. How do you think, Laura?
I think, I think Vermont is incredible all the way around. I do think bigger cities have more dedicated giving circles that are often bigger or more structured. There's the Asian Women's Giving Circle based in New York City that is really, incredible in the work that they do. And so I think, like many things Vermont, we're a little quieter. There's more giving circles that are maybe anonymous, or they're not really public, or they don't want to have a website or be written up in an article. So I think Vermont is, a lot of people in Vermont want to give in their backyard. They want to support their community. And that is happening with giving circles as well. So I think we're doing it, which is great.
Mm-hmm. And again, it reminds me that giving circles also have the flexibility to think beyond the traditional nonprofit and the traditional 501c3 giving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much do you find that that's happening, that giving circles are supporting individuals or political causes or things like that, sort of beyond the traditional nonprofit?
Yeah, there's definitely a wave of politically themed or motivated giving circles, and we're seeing that in Vermont and nationally as well. There are some actually national organizations that are trying to support local giving circles to support political candidates or issues. We've seen also giving circles that have started to that have given some funds to support mutual aid groups.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes giving circles that we've known of here in Vermont, we've seen them pool funds like in response to emergencies and things like that as well. But I would say probably, I don't know, Laura, what do you think? I think for the most part, though, they're supporting community-based, very local, smaller nonprofit organizations.
Yeah,
I would
Makes
agree.
sense.
And I think what often happens is they have their process, however often they meet to come together and support a nonprofit, and then something happens in their community or there's a need and they already have this group and they already have this way that they give. And so it's really easy for them to maybe pool funds and give when there is, a person or a family or, not a nonprofit that they see a need. And so they kind of already have that process figured out. And so they'll give in that way.
Great. Well, listen, we've reached the end of our time. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please, everyone that has any interest, reach out to Laura and Leslie through the Giving Project. We'll be sure to send out links to those of you that are here today. Thank you so much for your time today. I want to encourage anyone and everyone to join us next month. We're talking about trusts, various kinds of trusts. So another topic that hopefully people will find some interest in. And yeah, everybody have a great week. Try to avoid the pollen if you're like me and it makes you sneeze. And enjoy the summer and give. Join a giving circle. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks.